You think evenings are where life is decided, where success shows up, where failure reveals itself. You believe nights hold the verdict. But that belief is not just wrong, it's dangerous. Because by the time the evening arrives, the outcome has already been sealed. You are not living your life at night. You are merely collecting the consequences of how you greeted the morning. And if that makes you uncomfortable, good. Discomfort is the first sign that an illusion is breaking. You wake up every day thinking you still have choices. You don't. Not really. Most of your decisions were already made before your eyes even opened. The mood you woke up in, the tone you allowed into your mind, the first thought you entertained, the first distraction you obeyed. You call it routine. Jim Rohn would call it destiny in disguise, because the way you design your mornings quietly decides who you become by evening. But there is a deeper, more dangerous truth we haven't touched yet. The world loves to talk about motivation, but motivation is loud and unreliable. Discipline is silent. Structure is invisible. And mornings are where structure either exists or collapses. History doesn't remember the man who had a good night. It remembers the man who mastered his mornings when nobody was watching. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius didn't wake up asking how he felt. He woke up reminding himself what kind of man he was required to be. Not because he enjoyed it, because the world punishes those who wait to feel ready. You, on the other hand, wake up and check your phone. You let other people's emergencies, opinions, and fabricated victories invade your mind before your own thoughts have a chance to stand up. That single act already tells your brain something terrifying. You are reactive, not sovereign. And once your mind accepts that role, the rest of the day follows like a shadow. You think you'll fix it later, but later never comes. Evening doesn't correct mistakes, it only reveals them. Machiavelli warned that power is lost not by enemies, but by negligence. The same is true of your life. You don't fail because you're incapable. You fail because you're careless with the first moments of consciousness. The morning is not a neutral space. It is a battlefield, and every battle lost there is paid for at night with regret, distraction, and quiet self-loathing. But there is a deeper, more dangerous truth we haven't touched yet. Your mornings are shaping your identity, not your goals, not your dreams, your identity. The brain learns through repetition, not intention. Every morning you hesitate, every morning you delay, every morning you negotiate with weakness. You are teaching yourself who you are allowed to be. You think you are just tired, but tiredness is often moral, not physical. It's the exhaustion of constantly betraying your own standards. Jim Rohn used to say that success is a few simple disciplines practiced every day, while failure is a few errors in judgment repeated daily. Morning is where those disciplines and errors quietly stack. You don't suddenly become disciplined at noon. You don't suddenly become focused after lunch. You are who you practiced being when you woke up. Everything else is theater. Look at how society is designed. Work starts early. Markets open early. Power wakes up early. Not because early risers are magically better, but because they face reality before distractions multiply. Darkness hides weakness. Morning exposes it. That's why most people avoid it. They don't want to meet themselves without excuses. But there is a deeper, more dangerous truth we haven't touched yet. Your mornings are predictive. If someone wanted to know where you'll be in 5 years, they wouldn't ask about your ambitions. They'd observe your first hour, because that hour reveals how you handle discomfort, resistance, and solitude. It shows whether you lead yourself or wait to be led. And people who cannot lead themselves in the morning will always be managed by someone else by evening. Think about how often you promise yourself that tomorrow will be different. That promise is almost always made at night and almost always broken in the morning. Not because you're weak, but because you're trying to change outcomes without redesigning inputs. Evening promises are emotional. Morning actions are structural. One lies, the other doesn't. The ancient Spartans trained at dawn not to build muscle, but to build obedience to their own commands. They understood that the body resists before the mind does. And if you can move your body when it resists, your mind follows. Modern people do the opposite. They wait for mental clarity before physical action, and they wait forever. But there is a deeper, more dangerous truth we haven't touched yet. Every morning you wake up, you are negotiating with a primitive part of your brain that wants comfort, safety, and sameness. That part is ancient. It kept your ancestors alive. But it will destroy any modern ambition you have. It whispers, not now, just a little more sleep, just one more scroll. And every time you obey, you strengthen it. By evening, that voice is no longer whispering. It's in control. This is why evenings feel chaotic for most people. Not because the day was hard, but because the morning was unguarded. You let entropy in early, and now you're surprised it took over. Discipline delayed is discipline denied. Order postponed is order canceled. The morning is where chaos is either confronted or invited. Jim Rohn didn't romanticize mornings. He respected them. There's a difference. Respect means you show up even when you don't feel inspired. Respect means you treat the morning like a meeting with your future self, and you don't show up late to meetings that matter. But there is a deeper, more dangerous truth we haven't touched yet. Your self-image is updated every morning. The brain is a courtroom. Evidence matters. Every time you keep a promise to yourself early in the day, you submit evidence that you are reliable. Every time you break one, you submit evidence that you are not. By evening, the verdict feels obvious. Confidence or doubt, calm or anxiety, pride or shame. The jury was never waiting until nightfall. This is why motivation videos feel powerful at night and useless in the morning. At night, the cost of action is abstract. In the morning, it's immediate, cold air, heavy limbs, silence. And silence is terrifying because it removes the noise you hide behind. But silence is also where power lives. The strongest men in history were not loud in the morning. They were precise. Look at emperors, generals, philosophers. Their mornings were not accidental. They were ritualized, predictable, controlled. Not because they loved routine, but because they understood something modern people forgot. Freedom comes from structure, not chaos. If you don't design your morning, someone else will design your life. But there is a deeper, more dangerous truth we haven't touched yet. The morning is the only time when your mind hasn't yet been contaminated by comparison, before you see what others are doing, before you feel behind, before envy creeps in disguised as inspiration. If you waste that window, you spend the rest of the day psychologically compensating, chasing validation, reacting instead of creating. And by evening, you are exhausted, not from work, but from emotional leakage. This is why evenings feel heavy for most people. It's not physical fatigue, it's existential debt. You didn't do what you said you would when it mattered most. And the mind keeps receipts. You can distract yourself, but you can't deceive yourself. Nighttime anxiety is just unpaid discipline. Jim Rohn said you either suffer the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Morning is where you choose which pain you're willing to carry. Discipline hurts early and leaves early. Regret arrives late and overstays. But there is a deeper, more dangerous truth we haven't touched yet. Your environment in the morning is programming you. The sounds you hear, the light you see, the posture you hold, the speed at which you move. All of it is information to your nervous system. Sloppy mornings create sloppy thinking. Rush mornings create anxious decisions. Passive mornings create submissive lives. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your systems. Most people think designing a morning means waking up early. That's surface level. The real design is about intention before stimulation, purpose before command before comfort. You don't need a perfect routine. You need a non-negotiable one. Something so simple it's embarrassing, and so consistent it becomes identity. Because identity is the real prize, not productivity, not success. Identity, when you start seeing yourself as someone who does not negotiate with weakness in the morning, evenings change automatically. You stop needing willpower at night because the decisions were already made at dawn. But there is a deeper, more dangerous truth we haven't touched yet. Evenings don't ask who you want to be. They show you who you were all day. And that reflection can either feel like quiet satisfaction or unbearable restlessness. The difference is never what happened during the day. It's who you were when the day began. You don't need to overhaul your life. That's another comforting lie. You need to win the first battle. Get out of bed when you said you would. Move your body before you entertain excuses. Feed your mind before you feed your distractions. These are not productivity hacks. They are acts of self-respect. Machiavelli wrote that men judge more by the eye than by the hand because everyone can see, but few can feel. Mornings are felt, not seen. That's why they matter. Nobody applauds your discipline at 5 a.m. Nobody likes your consistency in silence. But power grows in places that don't require witnesses. And here is the final truth, the one most people avoid. Your life feels out of control not because you lack talent or opportunity, but because you abandoned authority over the first hour of your day. You gave it away. Slowly, comfortably, repeatedly. Design your mornings, and you won't need to rescue your evenings. Command the beginning, and the ending obeys. This is not motivation. It's cause and effect. You don't lose your life in dramatic moments. You leak it away quietly. In the first hour of the day, you think the lesson ends there. It doesn't. That was only the visible layer, because once you begin to understand that mornings decide evenings, something unsettling reveals itself. Most people are not tired. They are misaligned. They wake up already fractured. One part of them wants growth. Another wants comfort. And the morning is where that internal civil war either gets resolved or escalates. If you lose there, the rest of the day is just damage control. You assume your biggest enemy is laziness. It's not. Laziness is obvious, predictable, easy to label. Your real enemy is soft drift. The slow slide into mornings without intention. Days that begin without command. When no one is in charge, the weakest voice eventually wins. And that voice always speaks first when you wake up. Here's what nobody tells you mornings are when your subconscious is most honest. Before social masks, before justification, before rationalization, the excuses you hear at 6 a.m. are not situational, they are philosophical. They reveal what you truly believe about yourself. And beliefs, once repeated, harden to fate. But there is a deeper, more dangerous truth we haven't touched yet. Your nervous system remembers every morning you surrendered. It remembers how quickly you reach for comfort, how easily you postpone discomfort, and it adjusts your baseline expectations accordingly. That's why discipline feels harder over time. If you keep avoiding it, you're not getting weaker. You're being trained to avoid resistance. This is why high-level individuals obsess over mornings. Not because they're obsessed with productivity, but because they understand neurological leverage. Early actions disproportionately shape emotional tone, cognitive sharpness, and self-trust. One decisive act in the morning can stabilize an entire day. One act of weakness can destabilize it. Think about this. The evening version of you is not allowed to vote on the morning. That's where most people fail. They let the tired, overstimulated, emotionally compromised version of themselves make promises for the disciplined version they will never meet. Nighttime ambition is fantasy. Morning execution is reality. Jim Rohn understood this difference intuitively. He didn't ask people to dream harder. He asked them to live tighter. Fewer promises, fewer negotiations, fewer emotional bargains. The morning was sacred because it was clean, uncontaminated, a blank psychological slate. And most people stain it immediately. But there is a deeper, more dangerous truth we haven't touched yet. Your mornings are either building momentum or debt. There's no neutral. When you delay action early, the mind starts borrowing energy from later in the day. That's why you crash in the afternoon. That's why evenings feel heavy. You're not tired, you're overdrawn. And no amount of caffeine fixes moral exhaustion. The Stoics warned against living reactively, but they never meant only reacting to people. They meant reacting to sensations, comfort, fear, resistance. The morning is when those sensations are loudest. If you can act in spite of them, you become dangerous not to others, but to your former limitations. This is why people who control their mornings don't talk much. They don't need to announce discipline. They radiate calm authority. Their evenings are quieter, not louder. They don't need to escape themselves at night because they didn't abandon themselves in the morning. But there is a deeper, more dangerous truth we haven't touched yet. The morning is when self-respect is either deposited or withdrawn. You think self-respect comes from achievements. It doesn't. It comes from alignment. From doing what you said you would do when it was inconvenient. And the earliest inconvenience is always waking up and facing the day without most people anesthetize immediately. Noise, screens, sugar, stimulation. Anything to avoid the raw sensation of being alive without direction. But rawness is where clarity lives. And clarity, once lost in the morning, rarely returns before night. Look closely at people who feel stuck. Their problem isn't lack of information, it's lack of morning authority. They know what to do. They just don't do it when it matters most. Knowledge and used early becomes regret later. Machiavelli wrote that fortune favors the bold, but he also wrote that fortune is like a woman. It must be dominated decisively, not hesitantly. Mornings punish hesitation. You either act cleanly or you hesitate yourself into weakness. And weakness compounds faster than strength. But there is a deeper, more dangerous truth we haven't touched yet. When you win the morning consistently, something subtle happens. You stop needing motivation entirely. Motivation is a crutch for people who haven't built identity. Identity doesn't ask how you feel, it asks who you are. And who you are is defined by what you do before excuses wake up. That's why designing mornings isn't about optimization, it's about elimination, eliminating choice, eliminating debate, eliminating emotional democracy. When everything is negotiable, nothing gets done. Power begins when certain actions are no longer up for discussion. Your evening peace depends on this. Not your income, not your status. Peace. Because peace is the reward of self-trust. And self-trust is earned in silence before sunrise. Think about tonight. The version of you that will lie in bed replaying the day. That version is honest, brutally honest. It knows whether you lived deliberately or drifted. It knows whether you were in command or in reaction. And it never forgets. That's why nights are loud for some people. Regret echoes. Anxiety multiplies. Distraction becomes survival. But people who dominate their mornings sleep differently, quietly, deeply, without needing to escape into noise. But there is a deeper, more dangerous truth we haven't touched yet. Eventually, your mornings don't just decide your evenings, they decide your circle. Your standards rise, your tolerance drops. You stop resonating with people who live reactively. Not out of arrogance, but incompatibility. Discipline changes who you can coexist with. This is why transformation feels lonely at first. You are no longer synchronized with the world's laziness. You are awake while others are numbing themselves. And that separation is uncomfortable. But it is also where leadership is born. Jim Rohn said you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. What he didn't say explicitly is that your morning habits decide who those 5 people will be. Drift attracts drift. Structure attracts structure. Chaos attracts noise. Order attracts silence and strength. If you want different evenings, stop asking for better circumstances. Ask for better mornings. Ask for fewer excuses. Ask for a single disciplined act done daily without applause. Get up when you said you would. Move before comfort speaks. Think before the world interrupts. That's it. Not glamorous, not viral, but lethal to mediocrity. And when night comes, it won't accuse you. It will confirm you. Because you don't lose your life in dramatic moments. You leak it away quietly in the first hour of the day.